Which wrestlers should move in the WWE Draft 2021 according to Wrestling YouTube? Hi, welcome to SCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comments section. Please like and share the video as well. Well, if you haven't seen them already, they are on the channel. It's my WWE Draft 2021 predictions on the channel. If you haven't seen it, I'll leave the link in the description and also leave a link at the end of this video. But it got me to thinking, well, I've given my opinions who should move in the WWE Draft, but what about the rest of Wrestling YouTube? So I decided to reach out, ask a few friends, some top content creators in amongst our Wrestling YouTube community to get their opinions on who they think should be the top 3 choices to move in the WWE Draft. So we've got some whole host of names to look forward to, and at the end of the video we will go through together who are the most popular choices of who should be moving in the WWE Draft, and I'll give my opinion on whether I agree those superstars should be moving or not. And just before we get started, just to let you know that all the links to all the channels that are featured on this video are in the description below. So make sure to go and subscribe to their channels, support their content, and let's support everybody in our wrestling community. But without further ado, it's time for the first content creator to give their top 3 draft picks. It is none other than Aaron Wrestling By Wooldridge is here on SCW.
What's up guys, massive thanks to Steve for having me on this video. So my top 3 draft picks. My first one would be Drew McIntyre moving over from Raw to SmackDown. I feel like his character has gotten slightly stale. He's pretty much faced everyone on the Raw roster, and I feel like there are nice fresh matchups on SmackDown to have. Reigns is on there, Rollins, Edge, people like that. So that would be my first one. My second one would be Kevin Owens moving from SmackDown to Raw, kind of for a similar reason. He's not really done much on SmackDown ever since he challenged Roman Reigns for the title. It's kind of sad to see him sort of in the mid-card position, so I'd like to see him move over to Raw. He could be a good opponent for Big E for the world title. Could always face Priest for the Intercontinental title as well. Yeah, just really want to see Kevin Owens move back up the card. And my third choice might come out of left field a little bit, but it would be Apollo Crews moving from SmackDown to Raw, probably with Commander Aziz as well. I was a big advocate for his Intercontinental Championship run. I thought his character work was fantastic, so I'd really like to see him get back to that level on Raw. He'd be a great opponent for Damien Priests, and again, I do think he has the potential to be a good challenger for the likes of Bobby Lashley or Big E. You could also have a really fun dynamic by having Aziz and Crews go after AJ and Omos. You've kind of got that big man, little man dynamic there, which would be quite cool. But yeah, that's probably my top 3 draft moves. Cheers, Steve.
Some fun draft picks there. It's always great to go under analysis with Wrestling by Wooldridge. Have to agree with all of his selections there. I think both Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens could do with freshening things up. I really like that dynamic you've made there with Apollo and Aziz against AJ and Omos. I think that certainly could be a fun little feud that could be thrown together. But without further ado, we're going to get our next content creator on the show for us right now, coming to SCW. I like to think myself as a top maniac for this channel. Is of course WrestleManiac UK. Mex, take it away.
What's up guys, Mex from WrestleManiac UK, and I got the bird call from Steve to come through with my top 3 draft picks for the upcoming draft. So here we go. AJ Styles, him and Omos, separate them now, please. He is too good to be in a tag team, and of course on both shows, SmackDown and Raw, we are lacking top guys at the top of the card. Move him over to SmackDown and let the head of the table go against the guy that claims SmackDown is the house that he built. It just makes so much sense. It's such a good fit for AJ Styles at this point in his career. Possibly could become Universal Champion. I don't see him being the one to beat Roman for it, but could still be a top challenger on the show, or even if it's for a mid-card title. So yeah, AJ Styles is definitely one of my top picks. Second, Io Shirai. She is overdue a move to the main roster at this point. She deserves to go. I kind of wanted her and Zoe Stark to drop the NXT Women's Tag titles this past week on NXT, so that could free her up eventually to move to either SmackDown or Raw. It never happened, but hopefully she can still go to the main roster. I'm saying Raw because Raw lacks top challengers for the women's championship there. Charlotte Flair spinning her wheels a bit, just kind of beating up everybody else. So Io Shirai could be a great opposition for her later on in the year, come, you know, Royal Rumble, maybe even WrestleMania. Last but not least, Drew McIntyre. He's done a bunch of nothing since he couldn't challenge Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Move Drew McIntyre over to SmackDown. Him versus Roman. That is the big match. Roman has beaten Drew on 2 occasions now. And yeah, this is the match that they need to have. They are having a UK stadium show next year. That has more or less been announced at this point. That could be Drew's coronation. It's looking like it could be SummerSlam 2022. Get the title on Drew for that show and let him get the adulation and everything he deserves in front of a UK crowd. The first ever British WWE champion, remember. So yeah, we need to give Drew his proper props for carrying us through the pandemic era. He's the guy to beat head of the table, Roman Reigns. I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but that is the guy. So yeah, guys, those are my top 3 picks. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, keep following and liking everything SCW Steve is doing right here.
Some fantastic draft picks there. I love the idea of AJ Styles going back to arguably being a babyface once again. The house that AJ Styles built against Roman. Fantastic fantasy booking. Our first NXT call up as well there with Io Shirai. Definitely be interested to see what she would bring to the table. And definitely another vote there for Drew McIntyre. Seems to be an early front runner amongst the wrestling YouTubers. But will that be the same with our next wrestling YouTuber? And also a writer for PW Torch. It is none other than Mr. Tom Colohue here on SCW.
Hello everybody, this is Tom Colohue. You may know me from PW Torch or the Twitch sports team as of recently. I want to join in on this conversation that Steve has very kindly invited me to and talk just for a minute about the draft that we're expecting. And if you'll let me fantasy book for a moment, I can definitely see some big names changing. Now I saw Raw, I saw Extreme Rules. I know that maybe these aren't the most likely choices based on results there, but I want to dream, and I want to dream big. So a top 3 for me. I've got to say, Bianca Bella going to Raw. That would be one of my first picks. Bianca Belair's had an incredible few years. She beat up Bayley in many guises. She beat up Sasha Banks in many guises and will continue to do so. And now she started beating up Becky Lynch. I'd love to see her on Raw beating up Charlotte Flair, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Rhea Ripley and all of the above. Second choice for me, Drew McIntyre. And just to be a little bit different, I would maybe lean him less from Scottish Warrior and more towards Scottish Psychopath in his pursuit of championship gold at the very top of SmackDown. He's basically beaten everyone on Raw. That change for me just shakes up everything a little bit. Though I do think after what's happened with the New Day and how fast-tracked the feud has been, maybe it'll be Lashley who's moved to SmackDown instead. Number 1 for me though is the one at the very top of the card, the one that Fox and USA Network have been fighting over for months. With his cousins, with his special counsel, the Bloodline and Roman Reigns going to Raw. I think that might be the only thing that reinvigorates Raw enough to get it so hyped and so energetic to actually hit that 2 million again. Thanks for having me on, Steve. Loving the show, loving the channel. I've been Tom Colohue. Thanks everybody.
And a big thank you to you as well, Tom. There's some great choices once again. Drew McIntyre, 3 for 3 it seems right now. And I do agree going back to the Scottish Psychopath there. And I tell you what, I'd love to see the Bloodline go to Raw. Talk about an instant shake-up on Monday nights if that was to go down. And as well with Bianca Belair going over as well. I still want to see her and Becky Lynch finish that program. Maybe with Sasha Banks as well in the triple threat. But certainly you couldn't argue with that big money match of Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair. Dare I say it's got WrestleMania written all over it. But let's see what our next content creator has got to say all the way from the land down under. Very popular amongst our YouTube wrestling community. It is none other than TheElitist making his debut here on SCW.
First and foremost, I want to say shout out to you, SCW, for having me on the channel. I really appreciate it. It's cool you reached out, so thank you for that. As far as this topic, and when it comes to the draft generally, the draft's coming up, as most of you guys are aware, and if you're watching this video, you're fully aware. And there are a couple of wrestlers I want to see switch brands for this. Now, I have 3 selected for this video. I felt like I could do 5, could do 10, but I think 3 would be better, can be more straight to the point, can get a better point across, and probably get it, communicate it better. So as far as my three, for one, I'm going to do one that's probably a bit different to the ones you're going to hear in this video. I bet my other two will probably be echoed by near enough everyone else involved in this, but my first one, Toni Storm. I think Toni Storm should go to Raw, and the reasoning for this is I look at the SmackDown Women's title picture, I see Bianca Belair, I see Becky Lynch, and I see Sasha Banks, alright? Those three women are always going to be objectively the top three female stars on their respective brands. Based on how WWE books their women's division, Becky Lynch is always going to be the top star on the brand she's on. So Becky's always going to be the clear top dog. If Becky doesn't have the belt, based on how WWE have been booking and their track record, then you'll probably have Bianca Belair with the title. And then as a third wheel, I guess quote-unquote last resort, you're going to have Sasha Banks. Alright, Sasha Banks has made most of her career being that third or fourth wheel option within the four horsewomen in WWE, so Sasha's going to be a third option. Where does that leave Toni Storm? It doesn't leave her really anywhere. It leaves her just out in the dark, just rotting. It leaves her doing like a 2-minute backstage segment once every 3 weeks, having a random mini storyline with Dolph Ziggler, but not really, and hardly getting TV time. So I think Toni Storm should go to Monday Night Raw. I really do. I think on Monday Night Raw, there's more opportunities there. There's, I guess, potential there. Granted, you've got the Charlotte Flair monster on Raw, so that must be said. But nonetheless, outside Charlotte Flair, what is there on Raw? I guess Shayna Baszler's there, but I mean, Shayna Body Baszler. She's been buried more times than I can say Big Show's name in a minute. So, yeah, that being said, I think Toni Storm going to Raw would be a fun move at the draft. Something a bit different, something fresh, and plus she's never going to get a go on SmackDown as it's presently constructed. So, that's Toni Storm. Next, we've got Drew McIntyre. Drew, I bet everyone else in this video has this one. Drew to SmackDown is new, it's fresh, it makes sense. If you want to build towards Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns for WrestleMania 38, this is the way to do it. Move Drew to SmackDown, have Drew either win the Rumble again or do some big coming to Jesus storyline where he fights off all the obstacles and he finds himself again and he becomes that babyface he was 2 years ago and he overcomes the Tribal Chief. Something like that. It'd be new, it'd be fresh. The one obstacle with this is that Drew's now challenging Big E for the WWE title at Crown Jewel, it seems. So that does throw a bit of a monkey wrench into the plans, but nonetheless, Drew to SmackDown makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. So that's my second one. And thirdly, I've got Brock Lesnar to Raw. I think Brock on Raw, once this Roman Reigns stuff's finished with Paul Heyman, I think it makes the most sense. You move Brock to Raw, you can have Heyman on Raw be with Brock, and then you can have Heyman on SmackDown be with Reigns. Reigns can make an issue or have an issue with that, and that can be part of the storyline. Roman Reigns saying that he ain't no side chick for Paul Heyman. He's the queen bee of this place, like Roman Reigns can take issue with it. Plus, you get Brock to Raw. That way you can do Brock and Lashley. Hopefully at WrestleMania, you can set the seeds for that. You can build that up slowly. So, to me, those are my three moves. Drew to SmackDown, Brock to Raw, Toni Storm to Raw. Thanks for having me on SCW. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.
Some great choices there, and I'm loving some fantasy booking going on in this video, particularly that I love the idea of Paul Heyman being an advocate still for Brock Lesnar on Raw, still want to be associated with Roman on SmackDown. That could really add a dynamic even if they're not on the same show. I like that idea. Yeah, I agree, Toni Storm, definitely it was a mistake by WWE at this point, definitely should freshen things up for her, get her moved to Raw, and Drew McIntyre, that story coming together to build up that match against him and Roman Reigns potentially at WrestleMania this year. I'd be down for all of that. But let's get our next content creator on to see what he's going to say. And do you know what? It's not actually a wrestling YouTuber. In fact, it is my best friend, the person who got me into wrestling YouTube. He's got his own podcast, This Week in Metropolis, so go and check that out. But he's been a fan of the wrestling product since, the mid-90s, so he knows his stuff. And, he was also the best man at my wedding. So move over, Miro. It is James from This Week in Metropolis here on SCW.
Hey Steve, James here from This Week in Metropolis. My picks for the WWE draft, well, the first one would be a title switch. So it'd be two superstars who currently hold titles, switching brands, and that'd be Shinsuke Nakamura and Damien Priest. I think Shinsuke has been awesome, certainly since Boogs has joined him as his entrance, and now almost as a tag partner as well. But I think he would have some real fresh matches over on Raw, where he's kind of been stuck in kind of the same matches, going on a bit of a loop with Apollo and people like that. So I think he could have some real cool fresh matches now, as he is more of a face now as well. I think the last time he was on Raw, if I'm not mistaken, he was a heel. So that would be first. Damien Priests as well, although there's still a lot of potential on Raw for him. I think just to balance it out with the belts, it'd probably be better for him to switch over to the blue brand. And again, some exciting matches he could have there with the people that probably Shinsuke had matches with. And my final pick, again, is a little bit, you'd have to take someone else with the one that was my pick, which is Otis, who I think since he's joined the Academy with Chad Gable, he has been brilliant. There's a real vibe of the film Foxcatcher there. I don't know if you're aware of it, but if you haven't, check it out. And he's just ruthless. I'd love to see him go far on SmackDown. I can't see him being in the title picture due to Roman still being there. So I think he'd actually have some really good, if they wanted to push him up the ladder, he'd have some really good matches with Big E. So yeah, they would be my top 3 picks. Let me know your thoughts.
Some fantastic choices there, and a lot that we need to keep in mind actually with the draft coming up there. So well said there. The championships could move over shows there, and I think certainly would work for both mid-cards if Shin was to go to Raw and Damien Priest was to go over to SmackDown. And I love what you've stated about Otis as well, that whether he's pushed as a single star or as a tag team with the Alpha Academy, I'm loving what they're doing with him. And like you're saying, if he's to be pushed towards the top, it's much better he's done it on the opposite show to Roman Reigns. So that would make quite good sense there. And I do think even as a tag team, the Alpha Academy would have a better shout in the tag team division on Raw right now, because they were under the Usos on SmackDown. They could be challengers that could instantly go for RK Bro. So yeah, a lot of potential that could be seen there with the Alpha Academy if they were to move over shows. But let's move on to our next content creator and a former WWE employee from the Squared Circle podcast. Welcoming to SCW, here is Marie Shadows.
What up, wrestling community? It is Marie Shadows for the Square Circle podcast, and I'm here to give you my top 3 WWE draft picks because the WWE draft is coming up soon. I believe it should be coming up next month. I just keep up to date with WWE, whatever Twitter tells me that's happening in the world of WWE. So my first pick is definitely going to have to be, we need Ricochet on SmackDown. So that way we could get Pat McAfee to really do the commentary for Ricochet and get him over and get him to be a top superstar. So I would move Ricochet over to SmackDown. I would actually put Zelina Vega on NXT and team her up with Toxic Attraction. That's what I would do. And you know what? Just for the hell of it, because I like chaos, let's send Drew McIntyre over to NXT 2.0 so that way he could get a refresh on his character, because I really didn't like when he came out to challenge Big E or to probably insinuate that he's next in line for a challenge to Big E. Like, what? No. Let's send Drew McIntyre to NXT 2.0. So again, just quickly, Ricochet should be on SmackDown, Zelina Vega should be on NXT 2.0 to be with Toxic Attraction, and Drew McIntyre should be in NXT to maybe get a different character or just to do something different than what he's currently doing on the main roster. And those are my top 3 picks for the WWE prediction that's coming up, or just even the WWE draft that's coming up. And I would like to thank SCW, the wrestling channel, for allowing me to give him my top 3 picks. Again, I'm Marie Shadows for the Square Circle podcast.
Top choices once again from Marie there. Very interesting what we've got there with Drew McIntyre. Not the first time he's been mentioned, and also not the first time his character has been mentioned as well there. A unique dynamic putting him to NXT, certainly no stranger to the NXT product, being a former NXT champion. Zelina Vega in the stable as well. I like that idea. Certainly a fun concept given about her as well. And definitely Ricochet on SmackDown is something I've been hoping for literally every draft since he's gone to the main roster. And I do think, like you said, Pat McAfee would put him over big style. I definitely feel he would be an extraordinary standout superstar if he's on SmackDown rather than what seems to be a land of high flyers in general on Raw. But let's go to our next wrestling YouTuber, a familiar face on this channel, especially when I'm watching a retro review. It is none other than a Non-Stop Wrestling Chat here on SCW.
It's me again on SCW Steve's channel. Obviously, you're used to seeing my face here. Steve, thanks for asking me to come on to do this show. My top 3 draft picks. So first would be Rhea Ripley to SmackDown. I think she would be amazing on the SmackDown brand, and also over there, especially if Banks and stuff like that staying over there. You've got Banks, Becky Lynch, Belair. You've got a ton of women over there that I think she could do stuff with, and I would really like to see her do stuff with Liv Morgan. I would like to see her do stuff with Liv Morgan, because I feel that she could really build some people up as well, and also hold her star power. Number 2, I would love to see the Bloodline, Roman, Heyman, and Usos go to Raw. But what I would do is I would keep the Hurt Business and the New Day over there. It would build to that triple threat match that they were teasing on the house shows. So we're going to be getting Roman, Lashley, and Big E all going against each other. We saw it in Raw, and it's money we can get that against, but we've got the 3 teams. Imagine going to Survivor Series with 3 teams and end up going into who's going to win the WWE Championship or whatever. But really, really a lot there, which would be fun for me, I think. And third, this is if NXT's involved in the draft, and it's Io Shirai. I would love to see her on the main roster. Anywhere, Raw, SmackDown, I don't care. She's fantastic. She can put on a fantastic match with anybody, and I really think she deserves to be there and have that championship run. Thanks for having me on, Steve, and I hope that my top 3 draft picks you kind of agree with. See you later.
I wouldn't say I kind of agree, I definitely agree. I love the sound of those 3 draft picks. Rhea Ripley on SmackDown, I think she'd have a lot to offer. Can you imagine against the likes of Becky Lynch in a program? That'd be awesome to see. And what about when Bayley eventually returns to WWE? That's a match I've always wanted to see. And you mentioned the 3 stables there at Survivor Series. Take my money, I'd be well up for seeing that. And do you know what? For those 3 teams, how about War Games? Who knows if it's going to be used in NXT now, it's this 2.0. It'll be a great way to use it with these 3 stables, so absolutely loving that suggestion. And Io Shirai, not the first time she's been mentioned on this video, it seems to be a popular choice for an NXT call-up. But after our final wrestling YouTuber next, we will be looking over all the picks that have been selected and which are the most popular. So without further ado, returning to the channel all the way from the good old US of A, it is Bonafide Heat.
For me, my top 3 draft moves that I want to see, I think they all involve the SmackDown brand. But for me, I want to see Damien Priests move over to SmackDown. So I guess you can move the Intercontinental Champion over to Raw. I think it's Nakamura. I don't even know. I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank right now. So I want to see the mid-card champion switch places. I want to see Priest on Fox. Like, that's a big thing. And then I want to see Bobby Lashley go to SmackDown. I want to see Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns. I want to see Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. I want to see Bobby Lashley face that entire SmackDown roster. I think he would add another element to SmackDown that we haven't seen yet. And then I want to see Drew McIntyre move to SmackDown. Frankly, Drew McIntyre has done everything that there is to do on Raw. He's been on Raw now for what? Almost 2 years as the top babyface? It's crazy. We're going on 2 years of McIntyre as a top babyface on Raw. But it is where we are. So I think the dream matches there would be impeccable too if you put Drew on SmackDown. I mean, even though we've seen him versus Roman, yeah, they did the Survivor Series match, but I think a Drew McIntyre challenging Roman Reigns going into the Royal Rumble or going into WrestleMania, that just adds a different element. And yeah, we could always get Drew versus Brock again. We could get Drew McIntyre versus Edge. That would be just a ton of fun. Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. And yeah, that's it for me. And thank you, Steve, for having me on this video. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that you and all the other wrestling YouTubers that have taken the time out today to get involved on this video and have your say. And I've got to say, once again, Damien Priests, another shout there, another shout for Drew as well, and of course, Bobby and Lashley, like you say, would bring another level. It'd be the first time Bobby and Lashley would be under the SmackDown banner since 2006. Can you believe that? He's actually more recently been an ECW champion on the ECW brand than he's been on SmackDown. It's unbelievable. But yeah, let's look at then who has been the most popular choices amongst our ranks. Well, as you can see, with 6 votes, 1 for NXT, but most of them for SmackDown, it is Drew McIntyre has been the hot shot through most of our creators here. It seems that he needs a fresh direction, perhaps refreshing that character as well, which I wouldn't be against. I'm not the biggest fan of the sword gimmick he's got going on. I much prefer the Scottish psychopath, as Tom alluded to earlier in the video. I'd like to see that one come back in and sort of see a redemption story for Drew McIntyre. We've sort of seen those last 12 months or since the start of the year that Drew has kind of been falling of that last hurdle. He needs to find a way to get back up to the top and find a way to win the big one, whether it's at WrestleMania next year or perhaps even at SummerSlam, now that it's rumoured that it could be taking place in the UK. And we have 3 other superstars that have been linked together with 2 votes each. Of course, the first one being the Bloodline, of course, Roman Reigns. The idea of him being on Raw with the Usos. Talk about quick fix of trying to get the ratings back up. Roman is the biggest and best thing, arguably, in WWE right now. so to have him go over to Raw would be a big move, and you would expect it would go down as well if Raw is making the first draft pick. You'd think, well, why aren't they picking the Bloodline if they have the opportunity to do so? So it'd be interesting if that goes down during the draft itself. And Damien Priests to SmackDown as well, changing over championship for championship on Raw as well. Shinsuke Nakamura moving the other way. I'm totally fine with this. It would freshen up the mid-card completely without having to move over too many superstars, but my only disappointment would be that Pat McAfee wouldn't be a part of Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance anymore with boos, but maybe it would be more special if you saw it on those big pay-per-views perhaps once a month or on the Big Four or something like that. That's the time that you could perhaps get into it. Maybe it would be too stale if I was to see it every single week. And the other choice with 2 votes was Io Shirai and NXT call-up, which I personally would really like to see. It seems now that superstars are not going to be just kept in NXT going forward. NXT 2.0 has this new vision going forward, so it feels that perhaps people will be called up to Raw and SmackDown. It is rumoured by Andrew Zarian that there will be names called up in the draft. Yes, she's still an NXT Women's Tag Team Champion, but has that stopped WWE before calling people up? Karrion Kross was the NXT champion, was called up earlier this year, so you wouldn't be surprised to see it happen on the draft either this Friday or the upcoming Monday. And personally for me, I do have my concerns of how Io Shirai would be booked on Raw or SmackDown, but at the same time, I would like to see it. There's lots of potential dream matches on there, whether she was moved to Raw like Met suggested, or perhaps even if she was to go on SmackDown with the likes of where Becky Lynch is. But that's what Wrestling YouTube thinks. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with the wrestling community here on YouTube? And you can watch my full predictions on the channel for you right now. Should be popping up on your screen any second from now. Please like the video, share, subscribe as well, and like I say, keep an eye out on the channel. It is draft week here on SCW. Lots of videos will be on the way. But thank you for watching. Have yourselves a great day. I'll see you next time, and a big thank you once again to all those content creators that got involved on today's video. And don't forget, all the links to all their channels is in the description below, so go and click on the links now, subscribe to their channels, and let's all support each other here in the wrestling community. But that's all from me. Take care, have yourselves a great day. You've been watching SCW. Big thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.